Well, it certainly has made a lot of news this week. Walmart announcing that it wants to hire 100,000 veterans across the country.
Now, at first, this sounds like a great idea, but we want to see what veterans here in Albuquerque really think of this. So we sent News 13's David Romero out to talk with them. And Elizabeth, I believe he is now live out in front of the Walmart near Coors and I-40, right?
That's right. David, what were you able to find out from these folks?
Well, of course, Elizabeth, in the veterans group that I met with, so far the reaction is mixed. And as for Walmart's side, they stress that veterans would be a perfect fit in their workforce because they are, quote, quick learners and team players. Now, I contacted Walmart officials yesterday who could not comment on camera, but directed me to their press release, which states beginning this Memorial Day weekend, the company will start to fill 100,000 positions that it already has open just with veterans who've gotten out of the military in the last year. Now, the Veterans and Military Affairs Advisory Board from the mayor's office held their monthly meeting yesterday. The hot topic was Walmart's announcement. Most were concerned if the jobs would be full-time and how much they would be paid. Another big concern was for veterans just out of the service a year and how it may be too soon for them to start working.
And that sometimes veterans need more than a year to adjust and determine where it is they would like to go. But in general, we feel that it is a very positive thing.
And Walmart says this is only the beginning, and they plan to make hires over the course of the next 5 years. Back to you.
All right, David, thank you so much for that. On top of all this, Walmart also says that it's going to buy $50 billion more of stuff that's made in America during the next 10 years. Today, the country is still talking about President Obama's big plan to step up gun control and cut down on gun violence. Our Matt Mara has been looking further into all of this. And Matt, there is a lot to the president's plans here.
Oh, there absolutely is, Elizabeth. The president is doing some of this on his own, but for the bigger things, such as banning high-powered assault rifles and those magazines with a lot of bullets, he's going to need Congress's help. And as you can imagine, that is anything but a sure thing right now. $500 million. That's what President Obama wants to spend to stop gun violence in America. He announced that yesterday and signed 23 executive actions, including one that directs the Centers for Disease Control to study gun violence and another that helps young people get help for mental health problems.
If there's even one life that can be saved, then we've got an obligation to try.
The Speaker of the House, John Boehner, says he will consider new gun laws if the Senate passes them first, but that could be tough, with the National Rifle Association against most of the president's ideas, except one that makes more people get background checks when they buy guns.
Background checks at the gun shows, and that, as I say, was something that we discussed with ATF years ago and said we didn't have a problem with that.
Here in New Mexico, Governor Martinez and legislators are talking about gun control too. Representative Miguel Garcia has introduced a bill in the Roundhouse that would force anyone selling guns privately or at shows to do background checks on buyers. Plus, the governor wants a new law to make sure all people in New Mexico who are mentally ill are in a national database so they get red flagged during background checks.
What we should be doing is analyzing the laws that we have in this state, and we should do something to enforce the laws of the state and on the national level. And I think that's where we need to begin.
I'm hoping that we may not have to do a whole lot of things here in the state, that some of those initiatives like banning the assault weapons will be taken care of at the federal level.
Certainly no easy answer to any of this. Now, Miguel Garcia's bill would make it a misdemeanor here in New Mexico if you're caught selling a gun without doing a background check on whoever buys it. Elizabeth.
All right, and New Mexico U.S. Senator Steve Pearce, who is scheduled to speak this morning at 11 in Santa Fe, sent out a tweet shortly after the president's plan was signed. He said that, quote, more gun restrictions allow Washington to congratulate itself, but won't change the sickness, he says, that drives someone to murder indiscriminately, end quote. And newly elected New Mexico Congresswoman Michelle Lujan Grisham released a statement saying that the president's proposals are the first step towards real action, adding that the proposals are comprehensive and Congress should immediately consider enacting them into law. At 10:30 this morning, a woman will go before an Albuquerque judge for a DUI sentencing. Carol Sinovich had been sentenced back in October for hitting and killing an Albuquerque bicyclist. Witnesses claim that she ran a red light when she killed Scott Lane near Osuna and Academy Parkway in northeast Albuquerque last January. She claimed that the sun was in her eyes.
I-25 in Albuquerque is back open right now after a bad crash had part of it shut down last night. This crash was going north near Central about 7 o'clock. You take a look, it's where his pickup truck ended up rolling over. Firefighters had to cut the driver out there. As a result, traffic was backed up for quite some time.
We now know more about the former state police officer and his son from Rio Rancho, who are both now facing murder charges. It turns out that both Jack McDowell and his son John have criminal records. Jack for drug charges and John for gun, assault, and burglary charges. They are both charged with killing James Chavez a year and a half ago. Sources tell us that Chavez got killed because of drugs, and either he or the McDowells could be connected to the Banditos motorcycle gang. The bond for both suspects is now set at $1 million. A basketball player for New Mexico State University who police say was texting and driving and caused a deadly crash is now facing vehicular homicide charges. Investigators say Emery Coleman was texting when he crashed into Clarence Bollinger's car last year, killing him. Coleman is from Tularosa and has played in 3 games for the Aggies this year.
It looks like the man accused of killing a nun here in New Mexico will finally go to trial. This after a big ruling yesterday. A federal appeals court in Denver ruled that Judge William Johnson will stay on Rogelio Carroll's case, where he's accused of killing Sister Marguerite Bartz back in 2009. Carroll's attorneys wanted a new judge, saying that Judge Johnson talked with prosecutors when he shouldn't have.